The Radio Forest Podcast.
Hey, it's me.
How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for calling me.
Yeah, no problem. You've known Scott Cruz for years. How long have you known Bob and Tom?
Boy, good question. 20 plus years? 23 years? Something like that.
How did that first start? Because didn't you do like a lot more political comedy at first and now more of the NFL stuff, or has that always been your case?
Well, I have a master's degree in political science, and politics was always a passion of mine as a young man. And over the years, I've gotten a little less enthusiastic about it, and it's gotten so divisive and tricky to talk about anyway. And I've gotten more interested in writing jokes about football and my crazy family and my thoughts and feelings. Kind of slid away from politics. But yeah, in the early days of Bob and Tom, I did a segment called the Economopoulos. And every week I would pick a different subject. It was just like a writing exercise. Like, can I write 10 good jokes about phobias? I would do Christmas traditions from around the world. Every week was a different subject. One week I did Dante's Inferno. I was like, all right, there's 9 circles of hell. Certainly I can write 9 jokes. And eventually that morphed into an NFL version of the Economopoulos to sports radio. And sports radio was like, we don't do entertainment content. We're X's and O's. They're very serious about their stuff. It just became an all NFL segment.
How is the All Pro Lines? How's that been going for you? Because you started kind of your own company then, right?
Yeah, I basically built a brand around what I was doing on the radio. It's called All Pro Lines. Come follow us on Facebook or any of your favorite social media platforms. It's the social media version of what I've been doing on the radio. It's memes and caption contests, and people tag jokes, and we knock around funny things that are happening in the NFL. It's been great fun. I actually really love All Pro Line. Who knows? Maybe that'll be a retirement plan for me someday.
I didn't get a chance to hear you this week on Bob and Tom. Did you talk about Tom Brady as a broadcaster? What were your thoughts on that? I think it's pretty viral, I guess, online. But the stuff that I saw, wasn't horrible. Did I miss something? Is it pretty bad?
No, it's not horrible. He's Tom Brady. He's going to work and work and work until he's good at something. He'll be fine. But it was a little flat, in my opinion. That's my take. Some people were really harsh. They're like, finally something Tom Brady sucks at. And maybe we need that, but that's what we're rooting for because he's just won at everything so far. So people might be stretching a little. Plus, they love, what's his name, the guy that he basically replaced in the short run, the tight end from the Panthers forever. Anyway, so there's some reasons that people kind of maybe are rooting against him. I didn't think he was bad, but he definitely wasn't great. It didn't, jump off the page. When you listen to Romo, you're like, who's this guy? He's awesome. Again, that's just a personal opinion, but there are some guys, when you listen to them, they're so good at it, you notice. And I didn't feel that with him at all. But, it was his first time ever. I think he'll be fine because he's Tom Brady. He's probably sitting somewhere right now watching the tape and working on it. That's who he is. But, yeah, there's some people just have a knack for the thing, and he probably will never get to that. That's my guess. The joke that we wrote on All Pro Lines was, he's a color commentator, which is weird because he's not even allowed to eat any foods in colors.
Yeah. Did you happen to see that AI Tom Brady stand-up set?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they fed Tom Brady's voice into an AI program, and it did half an hour or an hour stand-up, but it's Tom Brady's voice, and he's talking about football and, deflating footballs and stuff like that. It was actually pretty funny. But it's AI and it's not Tom. But it does bring up some ethical questions about, the future of comedy for sure. Yeah,
well, I saw the Carlin one that got all the news and ended up in a lawsuit, actually. Kelly Carlin, his daughter, sued them for, using the name and likeness without permission, which is an interesting question. It was clearly built around George Carlin, but it's not George Carlin. Does it count as satire? Is it protected under that? It's an interesting social thing we have to figure out.
But if they put it on YouTube and it gets enough views, then you could monetize it and then you make money. So then are you making money because it's George Carlin's name? Because if I was like, hey, I have my own AI special out, people are like, we don't know who you are. No one cares. But George Carlin's name will get 1,000 views, the first day. So maybe in that sense,
of course,
you got to do something.
I think I agree. I'm with Kelly on this. And you have to protect the brands against this new burgeoning enterprise that's happening. And all social media needs to have a reckoning too, because people are posting clips of NFL games and with no credit, nobody is being paid. The NFL's not being paid for that usage. We use photos all the time. Nobody even blinks. You just steal whatever you want and use it. And a lot of those pages and things, they're making money, So these are questions we're going to have to face. And AI is definitely going to be a giant part of what's happening going forward. We'll see, man. We'll see what happens.
Are you a Falcons guy? Are you a Dallas guy? Do you like several teams? Because don't you go and watch Dallas practice kind of every year in the preseason?
Yeah, it's funny. Dallas has traditionally been my 32nd favorite team in the NFL. I always hated them when I was a kid. Actually, I am the commissioner of a fantasy league where we're not allowed to have roster Cowboys players. It's a non-Cowboy league. But I have a buddy, I have a friend who loves the Cowboys, and she talked me into going. We've gone 3 years now. It's great fun. It's drivable. It's like an hour from where I live, and you can go out to the beach and run around and watch Cowboys. And every year I wear some crazy Falcon gear, and the whole sea of people are wearing navy and white, and I got my big red shirt on. Fun tradition, yeah. So.
You probably don't have your name on the back, right? I doubt Economopoulos is on the back of a jersey. I'm sure it doesn't fit.
No, it says all names, any name here, and it's a 12-letter max. I got a 13-letter last name, and I have a fantasy team name, Economopoulos. I would love to have a jersey that says that. No go. The NFL's keeping a Greek man down.
Costaki, how is it being a girl dad? It seems like you really embrace it. You're surrounded by women. I've seen you've even donned dresses a couple of times for your daughters. How's that?
A couple of times. I guess that's true.
More than once.
I did go dressed as Wonder Woman. Well, yes, I did go dressed as Wonder Woman about 6, 7, 8 years ago for Halloween. My wife and my oldest kid were discussing, and they said, let's both go as Wonder Woman. They were like, I want to go as Wonder Woman. And the other one was like, I want to go as Wonder Woman. I was like, I'll go as Wonder Woman. And we dressed the dog up as Wonder Woman. And we all went as Wonder Woman one year. Being a girl dad's great. These girls are awesome. And I grew up in the opposite situation. I just had one brother, and my dad was kind of the character in the family. So it was a very male-oriented family that I grew up in. And now my life is exactly the opposite.
Do they pick up some of those stereotypical male things, though, like watching football and playing poker, or they, go the opposite way?
Yeah, so far the older one is skews pretty girly. The young one, we'll see. There's still time. She's actually had these mini helmets that I sometimes do goofy sketches with online. And she pulled those out and was playing with them. We made up a game with them, and when the Falcons game was over, she put away the Falcon one and went and got the Charger one because that was the next game we were watching. So she's kind of, there's hope. We'll see. Who's your team?
Who's my team?
Yeah.
You're going to laugh. I don't watch football at all. I'm a huge soccer guy. That's all I really watch. I watch a lot of English Premier League. Men's national team, not too much, but mostly English Premier League. A little bit of Italian, a little bit of German, but mostly the Premier League.
Oh, cool. I was wearing a shirt from the Greek national soccer team today.
Oh, right on, yeah. How are they in the world? You think they're going to qualify for the World Cup? Because that's coming to, what's it, North America, right? It's Canada, USA, and Mexico, and it's not that far away. Do you have a shot?
Good question. I'm out of the loop lately. There was a stretch where I was kind of paying attention, and I haven't lately. I have no idea. Always rooting for Greece. I always have mixed feelings about the American team. I like them in theory, but, it's been tricky to root for them in soccer, that's for sure. And rooting for sports is very much about socialization. For me, it's mostly been, I like the Georgia Bulldogs because I went to school there. And, we used to go to all those games and get drunk and run around. And then I became an NFL nut mostly through fantasy football because I love the interaction of fantasy because you're trash talking your friends and you're connecting with buddies and, you're following along with something that's not your crummy team, which again, as a Falcons fan, my team's been bad most of my life, but I would totally follow soccer if the people around me cared about it. I like the game. And here's another game that I would totally watch if anyone around me cared at all is Aussie rules football is a beautiful sport. It's so fun to watch. It's like a crazy mix of rugby and ultimate frisbee. It's like this big, wide open game with these long kicks and there's violence and It moves constantly. It's not a stop game like American football is. It's a huge field. It's 18 on 18. I would totally watch that. And they play fantasy footy. That's what they call it there. I would totally do that if anybody around me cared about that.
Yeah, I actually watched more rugby than I ever have in my life this year for the Olympics. For some reason, the time that I always turned it on, rugby was happening. And I was like, man, the athleticism and the fearlessness, like I forgot that you could pick somebody up and lift them in the air so you could catch the ball. But then they're not that worried about how that dude's coming back down.
And the rugby ethic is super cool. They're like unbelievably crude and rude to each other on the field. And then as soon as the game's over, they're all buddies and they drink beer together. So it's like this ethic of being tough and rough but they're not mad at each other in real life. It's just the game. Kind of beautiful about that.
And they're like hockey players. I mean, soccer, people always make fun of, you get kicked and you fall down for half an hour. Hockey and rugby, they get their nose broken. They're like, just a little bit of tape. I'll be back in 3 minutes. It's like his eyes bulging out. He's got blood gushing down his head. They're fine.
Yeah. They lose teeth and they got all these issues and their ears are weird and they just love it and they're obsessed with it and they do it. At one time I played rugby like in an official situation. I was a camp counselor at summer camp a million years ago, and a bunch of the counselors were, they're Limeys and Kiwis, and these guys talked about rugby the whole summer, and we put together a team and went and played in a tournament in North Carolina. It was just this ragtag bunch of camp counselors.
That's awesome. How did you do?
And it was great fun. I mean, I always loved the tackling part of American football, so I just embraced that side of it, and I was just crushing guys all over the place. I'm not fast enough or athletic enough to be really good at it, but I loved it. It was great fun. And I still don't really follow any of the other sports. People are like, oh, you're the sports guy. Like, I wrote a football joke that referenced the World Series one time in October, and I had to look up who was in it because I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just happen to love football. I'm not really a sports guy in a traditional sense. We all connect with it in different ways for different reasons. It's fun.
But you did go to the NFL draft, right? How insane was that? Because didn't they have like record-setting crowds this year? It was huge.
Yeah, Detroit. It was really fun. And it's a blue-collar town. And it's a town that people talk about Detroit like it's Beirut. Like the downtown of Detroit is beautiful. It's got so many cool bars and restaurants, and a lot of the sporting things are downtown. Like literally the baseball field is right there in the city. There's some things about Detroit that are great. And, of course, their team has sucked for 50 years, and they're finally good. So the people were going bananas for football. It was the perfect year to have it in Detroit. Go to a draft if you get a chance. It's so fun because it's all football nerds, and there's no game. There's no ticket. You don't pay for any of the things. That you just wander around with your Falcons shirt on and talk football. It's just, for the football nerd listeners out there, you got to go one year. It's just such a cool event. Everyone's like self-deprecating about their team, and they all know what they're rooting for in the draft. And it's just like this crazy weekend it's like an island of football talk in the middle of the dark off season. It's fun.
But here in Boise, it's mostly college football. But what stadiums then do you like to go to? You talk about that fan atmosphere of Detroit.
I had a friend who had half a season ticket to the Eagles for about 10 years. He would, and another friend would split them. So they had 4 games a year that they would go to, which is the perfect number, I think. And I went a couple times. It's so fun. I loved it. I've been all over the place because I travel for a living, and sometimes I'll try to stay somewhere an extra day and go see a game. And my brother and I have a tradition now we're trying to embrace. We've done a few years of. We go to one away Falcons game a season. We did a night game on a Thursday in Tampa, which was beautiful and awesome. Falcons at Niners, which was great. This year, the Falcons play in Las Vegas, so that one we circled immediately. We're going to Vegas. It's a Monday night game. I don't get to go to live games very often, maybe twice a year, but I love it. It's a grand adventure to be in it and with all the fans and the people and the nuts who really care, and then to literally be in the same space with some of the guys that you know of. And I've been writing jokes about him for years to watch Mike Evans catch the ball up close. This guy is so good at what he does. I love all that part of it. And, of course, the tailgating and the silliness before and after. And my brother and I run off and play poker whatever city it is after the game. And We love it. We just embrace it as like a central thing, as an excuse to go run around together for the weekend. It's great.
So what's your favorite poker game? And let me ask you a generic basic question. What's your basic poker strategy? Are you just playing like Texas Hold'em, or what do you guys gravitate towards?
Yeah, mostly Hold'em really took over the poker universe about 15 years ago with all that, with the televised nature. You know, Hold'em looks better on television than 7-card stud and some of the other games that were popular before that. So Hold'em really took over the poker universe. I've been experimenting lately with limit poker, which is a completely different universe from no limit. Most games people play now are no limit Hold'em, but limit is a totally different beast. And I've been experimenting with that. I'm kind of digging it because I kind of like that it's a little less bullyish. It's a little more about careful decision making. And you can't lose your whole stack in one hand. But, man, the swings are big and limit, too. You got to really be able to hang in there with some downtime. It's been great fun. I love poker. That's been my other guilty pleasure. Fantasy football. I'm such a boy in terms of my taste.
So what's your basic poker strategy? You just kind of wait for the flop then? Or do you have a number in your head where you're out, or you kind of play it to the end? Does it depend on the table? Are you a bluffing guy? You're like, I'm a strict numbers guy. If it doesn't look good, I'm out.
I'm probably best at staying even keel, right? Some guys get tilty and play bad when things go wrong. I don't really have that problem. And I make good decisions before the flop to try to stay out of trouble after the flop. I'm a little bit. I used to play like a really good chess player when I was a kid, and so I like that aspect of it. Because poker has this sort of image of being like a rough man game, where the guy with a cowboy hat and a Budweiser has the balls to make the strong play. Like if you look at the World Series of poker, the guys at the final table are like, some of them have master's degrees in game theory. These are nerds. They're not cowboys. Thoughtful nerds. They're guys who understand numbers and situations. Poker is really way more about playing the situations to your advantage than it is looking through the soul of the person across the table. I just embrace that side of it. I like that part of it. And it's poker draws so many weirdos that it's a fun situation usually too, you know.
Don't you have something called Caption Kangaroo? Is that something new where fans can add captions to photos that you're posting?
Brand new. Over the course of experimenting with All Pro lines, I learned that people love to caption things, and I always have. Back in the day, Maxim Magazine used to have a caption contest every month, and I would email in every month. There's something about captioning that's accessible to people. Like, it's very hard for the regular guy to sit down and write. It's hard to write a good joke. It's sort of intimidating, right? Mm-hmm. But if you see a picture, there's something about writing captions for a photo it's accessible. Everybody can do it. And invariably, people write really funny captions that I would have never thought of as a longtime professional joke writer. So I just love it. I've always loved captioning stuff. I think it's a funny situation. And so you're right. About a month ago, I launched a new brand. It's called Caption Kangaroo. Come find us on Facebook and wherever else you are as well. And it's not football. I find pictures that I find interesting that might lend themselves to captions. I post a photo, people go bananas, and sometimes we'll pick 2 or 3 and turn them into memes. Again, it's a brand new thing. I'm figuring it out, but it's been fun. I love it. And on Facebook, we already have like 700-800 followers, which is a pretty amazing start to a thing. These kind of things take a while to build, but it's been a fun start so far. Caption Kangaroo.
Did you ever get in on Maxim Magazine then? Did they ever pick you?
No, they never did, but I loved it. I loved the whole thing. And since then, like online, social media, there's always something going around. It's fun to add captions to things. I've always liked it. So my whole model in life has been to just chase the things that I'm genuinely fascinated in. That's how I became a comic in the first place. I just love stand-up, and that's how I became, the football joke guy. I was studying wide receiver stats for fantasy, I just love football. I chase poker the same way, and Caption Kangaroo is just another little quirky, funny thing that I always loved. So I just found that to be a good way to go, because then if you fail, you're at least failing at something that you enjoy doing. And of course, you have a better shot at being great at something if it's something that you genuinely like. So it's like win-win. Fail or succeed. It's better to be doing something that you like.
And I think you're embracing the humor of the internet, because you see any news story, you're like, oh my God, I got to read the comments. There's something big, because it's just going to be a heyday. And some of my favorite things to do is to find a podcast that's very popular that people hate and go to YouTube and just read the comments, because they're so funny. It's like the internet has almost become funnier than any 1 hour stand-up special. It's like your caption contest, because you have 50 tries at the same joke. And so the best ones float up to the top. This is the funniest thing I've ever read. This is like a professional comedian's joke, and this just happened. How did they think of it that quick?
Yeah, there's something about it's almost like crowdsourcing comedy, because the 100 people write captions. Most of them aren't particularly good, but 30 will be pretty good, and 10 will be quite good, and 3 or 4 will be effing astoundingly good. It's almost like Darwinism. It's like the cream rises to the top. It's kind of fun to go. And sometimes they're so beautifully written that it's hard to believe it's an amateur writer. You know what I mean? But it's what's fun about captions. Anybody can do it.
Well, it's all pro lines. It's Caption Kangaroo. It's Costaki Economopoulos. He's coming to the lounge at the end of the universe on Thursday here in Boise. Love hearing you on the Bob and Tom Show.
Thanks, man. What a great interview. This was a real pleasure. Thanks for giving me a call.